Hi, everyone. I'm Mandy Dwight, founder and CEO of Dwight & Company, boutique sales and marketing agency specifically for automation and robotics companies. Today, I'm here. I'm also the host of this podcast, ROS Goss, which I need to remember to say that every single time. So I'm here today with some industry colleagues of mine that I have great respect for. So Derik Pridmore, who is the CEO and co-founder of OSARO, and Gabe Zingaretti, who is the COO here at OSARO as well. So thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having us. Thanks for coming out.
Oh, of course.
Welcome to our showroom in San Francisco.
This is fantastic. So, I came by yesterday and talked to some of your other colleagues, and they gave me the tour. And I was like, this is awesome. I've known you, Derik, since I think I met you in 2017. Like, I've known you so long.
Yeah, in Germany.
In Germany. I was thinking about that. We were at an event.
Logimat or something?
It was an event that a 3PL had. And we had to get up there and talk, which by me, I mean my CEO at the time, and then you, and I sat there and just took pictures. It was an easy day for me. But lots of talks, but that was 2017. Things have, and I've never been here. And I look at where technology is from 2017 to now. OSARO has been in business for a decade now. You've just had a big 10-year anniversary. How do you think about that? What's the secret to that?
That's a great question. The market's moved a lot. Technology's moved a lot. I think the main secret is staying focused.
Yeah.
Staying focused on customers, staying focused on actually providing value.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things you can imagine doing with a robot. We now live in an age when you can render anything and kind of propose anything. And I think, you need to be both ambitious and kind of aspirational, but also really practical.
Yeah.
Because warehouses need to run. They need to deliver products. The robots need to actually work. So I think that's always been the balance for OSARO. Like, just coming from my background, invested in DeepMind, very much believe in, the potential for AI, even superintelligence. But at the same time, very aware that there's hype. And so you need to find middle ground. And I think it's super interesting to work in robotics because you do have to understand algorithms and everything that's happening, the latest, greatest, cutting edge of, whether it's LLMs, VLAs, any of that stuff. But at the same time, you're talking to customers who just, they want to deliver toothpaste.
Yeah.
And they want to do it fast and accurately.
Yeah.
And so that keeps you grounded. And it keeps us focused. It keeps us from getting too far afield. So I think
it's like that balance between aspiration and practicality, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think the key word there is focus. We have seen a lot of things change in the course of 10 years, right? There are a lot of companies that have been very successful. And I think you guys have been very, I was excited to sit down and talk to you guys because I really do think you guys are winning. And you're like, no, don't say that. You'll jinx us. But I really, I think you guys have done a really good job.
Thank you.
We have so many customers that you have that we can't even talk about because that's how important they are, And so, I mean, you guys have really, really grown and come a long way.
Thank you. It's really focused, but it's also trying to weed through all the noise that goes on in the industry. And there is a little bit about that puppy syndrome where every time there is a new ball or a new shiny light, companies and especially first-time CEOs and first-time, company owners, or they just want to chase that new thing because they think that's going to bring the new buck of revenue or investment. And really what it does, it doesn't. It just defocuses the company, burn more resources, and even though it's a cliche, it's that 80-20, right?
Yeah.
You have to stay focused and deliver the product that ultimately works till the end and through time.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
That's the key, working in production. I mean, it's funny to say, but it's true. There's, especially in the last 5 years, this is a super interesting market to have been in for 10 years because I would say from 2015 to 2019, it was this can't possibly work. And then, of course, there was COVID. And then somehow now it's but there'll be a humanoid that parachutes in, from Mars and it'll do everything, right?
Yeah.
And it's no, kind of neither one of those was right. It's it was always going to work. And It's going to be modular. Our philosophy here is modular, flexible robotics, tight integrations, high uptime, high ROI. Keeps us from having to build the hardware. We manage the algorithms. We manage the fleet. And our customers get kind of the best of. You get the robot that fits the use case, whether it's depalletizing, piece picking. You get the high uptime, and you don't need to worry about essentially consuming someone's science project. And what gets especially tricky, as Gabe was pointing out, is the pressure comes from both sides, because you can have customers who, they legitimately want something in production, but they also don't know what's possible, and they're making a lot of asks. And then on the flip side, we're in Silicon Valley, we're VC backed. VCs can also put that pressure on you. So, you can be scaling an application in production with customers at multiple sites, and then someone starts talking about LLMs. And, they want to know how your robots work with LLMs. And it's like, that's a complicated question. Not the most important one. It's not even like 10th on the list. We can get into it if you want to.
And also, does it have to work with LLM, right? So there is wish and necessity. And I think there is not a confusion, but they're trying to blend the peak of technology with what you really need, right? So if you want to go to work, you can do it in a Prius. You don't need to drive a Lamborghini, right? You can if you want to.
Yeah, you could.
It's probably not necessarily what you want to do on every day, right? So there is what do you really need and what you want, and what you want, if it's not what you need, is going to come at a price. And now the ROI start breaking down, right? You can't make it work anymore, right? So what we do really well is a process of education and collaboration with our customers, which is not just listening to what they want, but also bringing down to the reality of the ROI, where ultimately the numbers have to work, right?
No, I agree. I mean, customers, they need the value. I mean, tech specs, all that thing, it doesn't matter if it's not working on the factory floor. Uptime is really everything.
People work really well. They sometimes make mistakes, but more or less you can rely on them. And so when you go to and they can handle exceptions. That's the thing that they're really good at, right? And so it's one thing to go put a robot in there for a short period of time, but to actually, in our case, each robot replaces 2 people. So to pull 2 people out and have a robot working, 18 hours a day, you need not just the algorithms, but you need a lot of other things. And that's what we've spent a ton of time over the last decade building, sort of fleet management tools, all the integrations, so that we can integrate, so that we can redeploy modular robots and be flexible enough to support customers' needs, but always do it in a way that's practical, so that we're staging through. I mean, one of the questions you were asking earlier was, how did we choose kind of where to target in the technology stack, how much to do versus how easy to make the problem. So specifically in the warehouse market, for instance, you could think parcel induction, you can think palletizing, depalletizing, and then you can do piece picking, and you can get into combining that. How do you combine it with rack storage systems, conveyor belts, AMRs? For us, what we thought about was, what's the core algorithmic technology that we need to build such that we can actually tackle all of these use cases? And in particular, I think the decision we made that was a little bit out there in 2015, but turned out to be right on target, was that we believed piece picking was possible. We believed the algorithms were powerful enough that you could do it in a modular, flexible way. So you could do cross hardware. So if you look back here, you're going to see probably 8 different types of robots in the background. They're all run by the same core control technology and the same core perception algorithms, but they're fine-tuned and reconfigured so that if you need to pick up a 50-pound box, use a big robot. If you need to pick up something very small, like watch batteries, use a very small robot. That was the hard bet that we made in the beginning, and spent a lot of time. It took us 5 years of sort of technology development and piloting with customers to build out all the integrations. But once you have that, then you're in a position to do all of those applications well, meaning in theory, old style technologies could do depalletizing, but in practice, they often fall over because there's something on the surface, whether it's damage or just idiosyncratic box markings that make it difficult. And so if you built your system because you knew you were going to be picking, a multicolored foil, foil reflective Colgate box, then you're not worried when someone's boxes have sort of wild printing on them. And so that was the key, the vision system. And then from there, sort of spinning the other way around and getting really pragmatic and being like, okay, no more. We're just going to focus on integrations now and scaling the fleet, as opposed to, for instance, can we put this on a toy dog, or can we put this on a humanoid? That's kind of where we drew the line, because we want it to be very practical and useful for our customers. And that's still where we're focused. You talked about scaling with customers. Now we're at the point where we've got, deployments with customers at multiple sites where they actually want more, and then you get into the part of the problem where you can just kind of clone and scale up, which is a better, more fun place to be.
Well, land and expand. I mean, my salesperson heart just loves that, because that's more robots deployed, better ROI for the customer as well when there's multiple.
Exactly. They don't want, they would rather de-risk something, have it provide value, and then scale it up, and then do the next thing, not de-risk something and then go de-risk another thing. And that's, I think that's made sense for our customers. It's made sense for us.
Yeah, and I think like walking around here yesterday, I was so impressed with the amount of the equipment that you've integrated with. And I think that tells the story, because people don't realize that a piece of technology just doesn't function on its own. Like, it is part of a solution. So I saw mobile robots here, I saw auto baggers, I saw every piece of equipment that a customer has right now in their warehouse.
Yeah, especially when you start looking at piece picking. Whether it's a barcode scan or some other sort of value-added behavior, like we've had customers who want to put coupons in, things like that. So card dispensers, barcode scanners, auto baggers you mentioned, and then you get into conveyance, so conveyors, AMRs. Beyond the piece picking problem, the manipulation problem, there's this integration problem, and it's really important, and it's actually a great opportunity to not just make the system more robust, but provide more value to customers. So, like I said, once we had the core technology working, and that became a big focus for us, was just expanding the set of integrations that we have to make sure that we work with kind of everything, can play with everything. And then also API-ifying, modularizing it, so that when we work with integrator partners, because again, it's a complex ecosystem, big customers are generally consuming warehouses or solutions from multiple providers, so you need to play well with other people's equipment, and I think that's been a strength for us. It's something we're not afraid of. Pretty much every one of our deployments has some kind of
there is always something. This recently was the first time that we deployed robotics auto bagging with consolidation. So usually you get a tote, and there is items in it that you got to put them in a poly bag, right, in an auto bagger. This actually the tote that comes as multiple SKUs for different customers, so you have to sort them and then go back and repick them so that you can consolidate the order, and it's all done robotically. And it's the first time that we've done it for sure, but it's the first time that I think I've seen it just in general. So it's not like everybody can claim to have AI, and everybody can say, I have piece picking, but do you have piece picking, and do you have it all the way through where it is a product that a customer can digest and use and pay for it for the foreseeable future, right? And I think that's where we're now ahead of everybody else's.
Well, you stayed the course.
Stayed the course.
And it's noisy. I mean, it is noisy. We have seen a lot of things come and go in the past 10 years. A lot of companies come and go. There's been a lot of changes. And, sometimes I feel like things are going around and coming around again. It's a weird thing. It's like fashion, right?
Yes.
But how do you manage all of the noise in the industry?
Generally try to ignore it. Obviously, you need to pay attention to what your customers are saying. And you sort of have to pay attention to what VCs are saying, because they're paying attention. But otherwise, we try to stay focused on what makes sense in the real world. I've told some of our backers this, and we talked about it to our customers. The nice thing about doing AI in the context of robotics is, at the end of the day, there's actually a physical operation that's happening, and you can use that to massively constrain what's possible and what's efficient. So you can imagine all kinds of crazy things. You could juggle these items. You could build a robot that does that. But then you ask yourself, is that useful? Yeah. And I know that's a ridiculous example, but it turns out many of the other things that you see and have seen over the last 10 years were also ridiculous. So, if you just say, is there a simpler way? Yeah. Constantly, even if it means it doesn't seem cool, it turns out there's enough hard stuff to do. You don't actually have to make anything harder than it needs to be. If you just relentlessly try to make it simple, it'll still be too hard. And I think that's mostly how we've tried to avoid the noise.
Also say no to things.
Yes.
It's important to say no.
Yeah, it is important to say no. A lot of companies can't, right? Because it gets harder. You develop something and it doesn't quite work and it's not quite, your 99.5% uptime, your throughput is not there. And that's where, you're looking at something else. You're like, well, but if we do that, that's going to work. And then you do the same thing, right? You get there, 80% it's there, and then it doesn't quite work. You keep on moving. So we say no. We are not going to course deviate. We're going to course correct, right? Because we're learning things, but we're on that trajectory. We're going north, and we're going to stay north, right? The company and the team, to their credit, they really believed it, and they're marching in that direction.
Yeah, and as far as that goes, like managing the noise, but people like you see everything that's out there, in different ways, right? What's next? What are the next trends?
In warehouse specifically, or
warehouse robotics? Like, what are you seeing that you're like, wow, that might be a thing, or that might not be a thing?
There's a lot going on, and it's definitely going to remain an ecosystem, meaning there's probably going to be 5 answers to your question, and maybe everyone would say different things depending on what they're seeing. Like I, for instance, continue to see piece picking, depalletizing, palletizing. That's all going to get automated, or at least 80-90% of it. I think for our money, arms that are collaborating with AMRs or rack storage systems so that every component in the system is moving essentially 100% of the time. That's kind of where we see things headed. Yeah. So, and I'm just saying that to contrast it with not a big believer in kind of a one size fits all, whether it's a humanoid or like a quadruped that's going to be able to do many different tasks, partially because of the utilization problem, partially because of that value added kind of necessity that I mentioned, where you need to stay integrated with a lot of things. Like humanoids would probably have to wind up doing a barcode scan and typing and a bunch of other stuff, and it turns out you just do that all electronically. So the trend I see is just probably, I think definitely the next, it's happening now, but in the next 2-3 years, having kind of the arms come up against the AMRs and work with them, as well as the rack storage systems. I think that's interesting. It's valuable. And we're doing that. We see customers who want it. So that's, for my money, I think that's probably one of the more interesting things to watch.
Yeah.
It's definitely like the most efficient way of looking at warehouse automation with ROI, right? So an AMR is supposed to just move.
Yeah.
So that's what they do, right? So you're paying for something that moves, and the robotic arm is supposed to move as well, but it's in a fixed position and move things, right? So the combination of the two is almost like you're getting the best of both worlds, where the part that is supposed to walk or roll or stroll is always doing that, and the part that is supposed to move and pick is always doing that, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, that's tangible, right? And that's what people need right now. Labor challenges are always going to be there. A lot of brownfields, and you guys do a lot of brownfields.
Yeah. I mean, I don't come from the material handling space, and when I walked in the first warehouse, I mean, these things are massive, and there are millions and millions of dollars of equipment in it. They are not going to be dismantled anytime soon, right? You have to retrofit.
Yeah.
And building a new warehouse is like 2 to 3 years ahead, right? And in 2 to 3 years, the technology is moving. So as you build a warehouse, you got to see what the technology is moving, because you can accommodate it. Otherwise, you'll be 3 years behind on something that is brand new.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. So, we're coming up on time, and I know that you have an all hands upstairs in a little bit. So one thing I did bring for you guys, I talked at the beginning, I've known you guys for a long time. We sold against each other for a while, so yep.
We forgive you.
Yeah, I know. So I sold a competing product in 2017. I was like, oh my God, that OSARO, I'm so nervous about them. And, you guys were tough to sell against. You won. The product I
Slightly
sold.
different market, but yeah.
Yeah, it's slightly different, but, you guys did a really good job. You sold. So I saw this online.
Ooh.
Oh, wow.
You guys won.
Thank you.
So I wanted to bring this to you
Thank
guys.
you.
So this
That's
is
great.
for OSARO. Congratulations.
Love
You
that.
got
Thank
me.
you.
So yeah, and
This reminds me of the More You Know star. Dun, 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 dun.
That's awesome.
maybe we'll
OSARO.
close the podcast with that.
Cool.
Let me see.
Thanks for coming out.
If you're
Keep-
Thank you for
first,
the
you're
trophy.
last.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, man.
Thanks.
Thank
Again,
you.
Mandy Dwight, dwightco.com. Anything that you see, it's on rosgoss.com, dwightco.com. And thank you guys so much for sitting
You
with me.
got
This
it.
was
Thanks for
really
coming out.
fun.
Thanks.
So,
Awesome. Thank you so much.
thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.